All right, folks, how you doing? RussellTrueResults303.com. Check out the website, link in the description box. Mind, body, spirit, fitness. Putting the healing back in health. Coming at you today with a spiritual video on the Stations of the Cross. And this is going to be for the Catholic religion. From what I know, there's no other form of Christianity that celebrates the Stations of the Cross. We do it during the Lent season every Friday. And of course, that is when we ourselves give up something and sacrifice something in our lives, just like Jesus did in the desert for the 40 days and the 40 nights. And I'm going to come at you, like I said, with a play on the Stations of the Cross. I'll go through them and just kind of talk about how walking with our cross daily, right? Jesus says, carry your cross daily. And this whole Stations of the Cross is Jesus' journey to the cross, to the sacrifice, to the forgiveness of sin, to being our Savior. So here we go, all right? The first station, there's going to be 14 of them. I'll go through them, and we'll kind of break them down. So the first one is Jesus is condemned to death. How can this take place in our life? Once again, it's following God's plan. We have to know God's plan. In order to do that, we have to become spiritual, read the Bible, pray, help others. We need to understand what God's plan is for us. Now, of course, and then from there, it's zoning in and increasing our gifts, helping build our gifts up so we can share them with the world. Next is going to be Jesus carries his cross. Now, this is him carrying our sin, right? He's already been beaten. He's bloody. He's carrying our sin. So how can we do this? Once again, this is self-acknowledgement, knowing our own sins and where we struggle in life, so that we can overcome our sin, just like Jesus is doing on his way to the cross. He is carrying our sin, our burden. So we must know our sin in order to give our sin. One of my favorite rappers, D1, he says, in order to not be a mental slave, you've got to know you're a mental slave. It's the same thing. In order for you to know you're doing something wrong, first you must know what it is that you are doing wrong. So we must explore ourselves. Next is Jesus falls the first time. This is for us. This is the same. On Jesus' journey to the cross, he stumbles and he falls. Just like us in life, we're all going to stumble and fall when we have major issues and troubles and rough waters in our life. But Jesus got up. And it's our duty to do the same. Keep moving. Next is Jesus meets his mother on this walk to the cross of carrying his cross. And this is where we've got to understand the way family today in our society is so broken. There's so many divorces and things like that. We must realize that no matter what, our parents are always going to be there. Our family is always going to be there. So when we are struggling, we must come to them. They will give us guidance and comfort, even if it's just with a smile. Right? I'm sure when Mary saw Jesus carrying that cross, bloody, beaten, she was probably crying. Probably very upset. They say the worst thing that a parent can experience is the loss of a child. And she is witnessing the loss of her child. So our family will always be there. They'll be strong. And at times, I guess you could see it's Jesus comforting her, saying that, don't worry, mother, I'm doing God's plan. So it's also our job to comfort our parents, guide our parents, teach our parents just like they have taught us. Next is Simon helps Jesus carry his cross. And this is the same thing. We must cooperate with God. Now, of course, if I remember correctly, Simon didn't want to. They forced him to. But it's the same thing. We must cooperate with God. And once again, it's knowing God, knowing Jesus, right? Knowing what he wants us to do. We have to be able to understand these things so that we can follow the plan and help him. And that's through prayer, preaching, and learning about God, Jesus, the Bible, the Catholic Church, the religion, so that we can defend the faith and help others to come to God. Next is number 6. Veronica wipes the face of Jesus. And this is the one thing I have a video on friends. I always forget to put these things in there, folks. So check out the video on the rule to making friends, the 33% rule. Once again, Jesus came, the readings today, it was Jesus told the Pharisees that he came, the healthy don't need a doctor, the sick do. So he came for those who are sick and need help. That's why he was eating with tax collectors and things like that. And of course, we always hear in ancient times, women didn't have much power back then. That's why they needed a man in their lives, because the men had power back then. Of course, it's different nowadays, but that's how it was in ancient times. You know, we've got to understand that it's not the Bible trying to hold women back. That's just unfortunately the way the world was ran back then and how it worked. So we've got to understand that even these lowly people can help us in our everyday lives. Everybody can add value to your life. You've just got to be willing to invite them into your life. Like I said, it's sitting there talking to a child. The child has great knowledge, even though you might not think so. That's why Jesus held them so highly, saying you must be just like this child if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven. Because they do hold great value. They see things. They're innocent. They don't see the corruption of the world. Right? They see the innocence of it, and they can see what's truly going on. Sometimes, you know, there's times, of course, they're kids just like us. We don't know everything, but you can learn something from them. There's weird observations and weird and different ways that they see the world than we do. Next is Jesus falls a second time. This is a reminder that there's always going to be bumps and roads even after we've hit that patch. But we have to get back up, no matter what. We might have thought we've overcome some sin, and then it peeks its head back up in our life. And we must remember that that's okay, but we've defeated it once, we can defeat it again. Get up and keep going. Don't stop. Next, Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. And once again, this is the same thing. Helping those below us. Right? That's Jesus' whole ministry. Helping the sick and the poor. But the sick and the poor in spirit. You will have wealth. Yes, spiritual wealth. Right? Don't get it twisted with you'll have lots of money if you follow Jesus. That's not the way it is. Right? None of the 12 apostles were rich. You know, the church was rich and the church had money. That's where it went to build up the kingdom. But no matter what, no matter how bad our lives get, we must realize that don't take it out on others. You know, don't bring work home to the wife and the family. Don't take family problems to work. No matter how bad your day's going, someone else's day is probably a lot worse. We have it fairly good here in America compared to other countries. We must understand that no matter what, we still need to think of others. That's Jesus' whole ministry. Next is Jesus falls a third time. This could be the rock bottom. I have a video on setting your rock bottom standard to where if I hit this level, I'm not going to go any lower. If I hit this, something has to change, and I'm getting on my feet, and I'm moving. And that's what this third fall is for Jesus. This is rock bottom. This is where sin and negativity and everything is just collapsed in on you, and you thought you had it, you know? Or maybe you weren't even attempting your spiritual journey. You weren't attempting anything, and now you're pulling yourself back out. That's what you have to do, just like Jesus. No matter what, no matter how many times he fell, he was getting up. He was going to fulfill God's plan. Next is Jesus' clothes are taken away. So we all know Jesus was beaten. And if you've seen, I think it's The Passion of the Christ, the Mel Gibson movie, that one is brutal. He's really bloodied up, right? And they strip him naked. And this is where kind of like Jesus is returning to the garden. He's carrying our sin, right? But before sin entered the world, we as humans walked around naked and without shame and just alive and loving and beautiful creatures, right? And now this is where they strip Jesus of his clothes, and not knowing that they are stripping him of his clothes, they are returning him back to purity. He's got the sin. This is where the sin is starting to be overcome in our lives, right? This is where we're on that path. We've overcome everything. We're coming up at a rock bottom. Now here we are back in the garden, trying to achieve that sinlessness, that perfection. Next, Jesus is nailed to the cross. This is where the fight begins. You thought rock bottom was bad. Now climbing out of that pit is even worse with each nail that goes into Jesus, right? With that pain, now we are letting God take over of ourselves. It's hard to let go of ourselves and our ego and our pride, all the sin and the frustration. And it's difficult to let God in, but this is where it starts to happen. Nailing to the cross, the journey's there. God's plan is coming into play. Next, Jesus dies on the cross, and this is where we as ourselves have finally overcome some things in our life, these negativities and these downfalls and these shortcomings, and God is working within us and slowly building us up strongly day by day, month by month, year by year. People are starting to see it. Unfortunately, people might be upset because they're seeing great change in you, and maybe they're frustrated that they can't see change in themselves, or at least the type of change that you are achieving. This is where, great things happen. Next is Jesus' body is taken down and he is laid in his tomb. And for us, this is where, of course, we're always a work in progress, but we're there. He's working in us. We're happy. We have, that marriage with God, that unity, and things will be okay. This is when we ourselves are no longer afraid of death, no longer afraid of sin. We're able to look it right in the eye and say, I welcome you with open arms, because I know with my God and Jesus by my side, anything is possible. So there you go, folks. The stations of the cross, the 14 stations. I hope this helps you on your spiritual journey, what it means to carry your cross daily through your life to achieve great things. Not only for yourself, but for God, for others, for everybody here on earth. Once again, I hope this helps. Subscribe to the channel, share and like these videos.